We are with Mario Savoldi, who is getting the 2025 International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame Trailblazer Award here tonight. And you actually look fairly similar to this still.
Oh, that's good news.
Yeah.
I'm happy for that.
So you're a famous promoter. I know you've promoted all around the Northeast. You were involved in Puerto Rico. At one point, I think you promoted with WWE too.
Yes.
Are you excited about this big award tonight?
Oh, it's a great award. You know, it gives me, you know, it takes me back, and more than even being part of this award, I got the opportunity to drive up here with one of my friends for a long time, Tito Santana. We drove up together, and you can only imagine what those conversations was like in the car. But yeah, I'm really happy and proud to receive this award.
How long have you been in the business for?
Well, prior to being in the business, I owned record shops and restaurants, and in 1978, we had sold all our record shops to Sam Goody, and so my dad said, you know, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. He said, well, I think there's an opening, you could come with us, and that was the WWF. Actually, it was the WWF at that time. The third W wasn't in yet.
That's Angelo Savoldi.
That's Angelo Savoldi, yeah. And I got to, you know, but being a part of wrestling all my life, I mean, we traveled everywhere with my dad. Most of my time, my school was in Oklahoma, in Tulsa. That's where my dad was junior heavyweight champion for several years and 3 or 4 times. So, you know, fortunately, I got to drive in a car with these guys. I mean, you know, Wild Red Berry. I mean, you go back, John Tolis. I mean, these were super names in professional wrestling. And, you know, as a kid, I would say, Dad, how come you wrestled him tonight and he's eating dinner at our house? You know, I mean, I just couldn't get it, you know. But I love this business. It's a part of me. It's a part of my family. My brother Joe Savoldi. My brother John was involved with the ring buildings. All the designs on the rings were done by, I'm going back in the 80s now, 70s and 80s. My brother John designed the rings for the WWF at that time. So our whole family has some part of wrestling. It's been good, and they're coming out with I want to get this straight because I don't want to say anything that's not right, but it's been brought to William Morris. Is that the William Morris Agency? William Morris Agency. They accepted it. They took it over to WWE. Apparently, for what I know, they accepted it. It went to The Rock, and he didn't refuse it. He put it on hold because they were so busy doing so many things, but they want to, before any agreement is made, they want to have second chance at it. And it started out as a biography of my dad, but then once we got involved in it, there was always the implication that the mob was never involved in professional wrestling. Well, that's not true. The mob was involved in professional wrestling, and that was our backers when we started the ICW. So that's very interesting, and it goes back to the Philippines where Aquino, the guy at the airport, gets shot, and we have one of the biggest New Jersey mobsters there with us as part of the event. And in the morning, he's missing. He's gone. He flew out, even though the whole country was in siege. Bucky flew out. And so that's an investigation that's going on now, and it's part of this whole, and it's called what? Revolution at Ringside. Ringside at the Revolution. And that, from what I understand, is going forward, and WWF is very interested in it.
What towns did you promote for WWF?
We had parts of New Jersey, which we shared with Gino, Gorilla Monsoon.
Yeah.
We had parts of New Jersey that we shared with Gino. And then we shared all of Maine with Vinny, young Vince. We shared all of Maine, and then we had New Hampshire, different towns. And as ICW, we did all. We did all of Maine, Philadelphia, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine. We had Virginia. We had a very successful operation going. And the good thing there was that whenever we needed help, I would call Vince, I call him Vinny. I would call Vince, and he would say, "What do you need?" And we were doing, I think, we were doing Australia, I believe it was Australia we were doing, and I told him I needed some talent, and at the time, bushwhackers were the big things here in New York City, and so was Dink and Doink. And he sent me all those guys. He said, yeah, just pay them and you can have them. So that was the relationship we had, even though we never ran against him. You know, like if we knew he was coming into Maine, we would stop promotions until he left and then do our promotion. And I think because of that, we had a great relationship and still do.
Do you have any temptation to get back into promoting those states? Because I don't think much of the major companies go to Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire anymore.
You know, I really thought about it.
Yeah.
It's been something that's been in the back of my mind. I would have to fight with my wife to get it to the front of my mind. But I really have thought about that because I think the way that these guys, the new guys, are getting into business is without the knowledge of really how to promote a town. You know, I was taught by the best. I was taught by Vince Sr. how to promote a town. I mean, and he, I have to say, had to respect me also because when Blackjack Mulligan and Murdoch opened up Amarillo, Texas, Vince sent me there to promote for them. When Mike London was having trouble in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Vince sent me to Albuquerque to help promote Albuquerque. And he gave me the opportunities on how to promote. I mean, I would call him up. Sometimes he would say, Jesus Christ, don't call me at 12 o'clock, you know. And I would say, look, you know, like this gimmick didn't work. What do I do? How do I change it? How do I make this happen? And with his help, I put together a team in Albuquerque, New Mexico, of Teddy DiBiase and Tito Santana. And I had called Vince, and I had called him live, and I said, Vince, I just got to the Albuquerque. Now, these shows were in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The show was run at 1 o'clock on a Sunday. And we would do a good crowd, always a good crowd. But never a line at the box office. I mean, people get their tickets, they went, and we would do a good crowd, 300, 400, 500. I put together Tito and Teddy, and we drive up to the Albuquerque Coliseum, and there is a line of young girls for as far as you could see. And I called Vince. I said, Vince, I think I hit on something here. We talked about it. I asked him if I could take Tito and Teddy in. He says, nah, I don't really need any baby faces right now. I said, Vince, let me ask you this. If I was to go buy their plane tickets and I fly them there, would you just give them a shot at Allentown? Would you just give them a shot? And if they're no good, not going to cost you a dime, you don't have to pay them. I'll take care of everything and I'll fly them home. He said, if you're pushing that hard, go ahead. So I fly Tito and Teddy. We fly out of Lubbock, Texas. We fly into New York City. Into Allentown. We go to the thing. The only thing I asked for, I said, I need Johnny Rods and Jose Estrada. I want those two guys to work with them as individuals because I knew Johnny Rods has to be one of the greatest wrestlers ever in professional wrestling because he can make you or he could break you. And that is only 1 in a million that can do that. And Jose was right behind him, but Johnny Rods was the king. And I wanted Johnny to be with Tito. And Johnny worked with Tito and made Tito look like he was a superstar. And Teddy DiBiase, same thing with Estrada. And Vince turned to me, and he used to take his quarters and just go like this when he was watching something that had interest. And he turned to me and said, "Go to Phil Zucco and get your plane money." So I knew at that point we were in, and that was, that was it. And then when I was in Amarillo, I was the only guy to get Bruno. I mean, Bruno never went no place. And I had Bruno in Amarillo. I had Bruno against Terry Funk. I had Bruno against Dory Funk. I mean, they were seeing stuff like they never seen before in Amarillo, Texas. And then the Giant. Giant was because I traveled with the Giant for 2 or 3 years. I was with the Giant, especially when he was in the hospital and everything. And
you must have a good story about him you could share.
Oh God, yeah, the funny story. If anybody's watching Netflix, Vince got this film on Netflix. If you open Netflix, and I got the picture on my phone. When you see Netflix, we're in the first shot. Me and Vinny, we're in the first shot of Netflix, right? And everybody goes, "Oh wow, you guys are in the shot with Mr. McMahon. He must have really wanted you guys. You must have been close." That's not the true story. The true story was, the day before, we had the Garden Show. After the Garden Show, we used to stay at the Ramada Inn. I think it's on 48th Street in New York. That's where we used to stay after the Garden Show. And then Tuesday was TV. Well, Vinny and I stood behind because we had to take Andre to do this photo shoot. And if you ever seen it, it's the one with the girls all on the
I've
shoulders,
seen that.
right?
Yeah. There's 4 girls,
There's
right?
4 girls.
Yeah.
Well, the problem was, when we met Andre at 9 o'clock in the morning, Andre goes, "Boss, let's get a drink first." So we're going, "No, we got to go to this church." "Oh, only one, boss, only one." Well, not only did Andre start drinking, me and Vinny start drinking. But anyway, now it's like 11:30. We're supposed to be there like 9:30. And they're contacting Vince because we had no cell phones then. There was no cell phones. So they're calling Vince. Vince is trying to get a hold of us, right? So we finally get Andre over, we get the picture taken. The problem we had, it took us like 2 hours to get the pictures taken, was because Andre was so sweaty and he was drunk. He was so sweaty that the girls kept sliding off. So you can't see it in the pictures, but Vinny and I are holding girls' asses up in the back of that so they don't slide off of his shoulders. So we go through that. So now the next day we have to, that night we get in the car and we drive with Andre to Allentown, Pennsylvania. The shot in that photo is when Vince told us to come in the office and sit down, and he was going to, we thought we were fired. Vinny and I walked in here believing we were fired, and the father said, "You guys, if this is what you want to do, if this is the way you think you're going to get into this business and be successful, you have no idea what you're doing." And so it really wasn't a great picture of us. It was like, holy shit, we're not fired. I mean, that was the take out of that picture,
Were you involved with any of those Middle East tours of the early 80s?
Yeah, I did Saudi Arabia. We were the first, actually, and Vince gave me talent. I had Blackjack Mulligan and all of them. I did the first tour to Saudi Arabia. We were there for 10 days, and I had Ivan Putski, I think, Jerry Fazio, the Moondogs. We had them in. That was our first trip to Saudi Arabia. We took the first trip there. We did Saudi Arabia first. We did Venezuela first. We did the Philippines first. We were sent there to open up, but they were my promotions. Vince just supplied me with the talent.
Were you involved with the one where apparently this story just came out recently, that there was some sort of incident with Snuka on a plane on the way home from one of those tours?
No, I was not involved in that. No, and any time I had snooker, I never had a problem. No, Jimmy was great.
He was in ICW too, right?
Yeah, yeah. Jimmy was great. I mean, I had called him one time and he was double booked, and we had advertised him, and then Vince Jr. now, He had booked him, and he called me up and he says, "Look, man, what do I do?" I said, "Well, look, you can't lose your position where you are. Let me." And I called Vince and I explained it to him. We were like in Hamburg, Pennsylvania, or something like that, And I said, "Vince, like he's my headliner." And Vince gave him to me. He said, "Okay." He said, "We'll just no show him and we'll send him to you." And my relationships were good, and but my dad's relationship with Vinny was even above that. My dad was Vinny's mentor. He traveled with my dad. His towns in Worcester and all through that area, Worcester, Mass, was with my dad. And when my dad died, Vinny insisted that he do the 10 bells himself personally. And then he called me on the phone, and I will never forget this. He called me and he said, "Hey, we both lost somebody really close." And he started crying on the phone. And I'll never forget that. I mean, to me, that showed me how much he really cared,
Yeah, I haven't seen the documentary yet. I'm not really that interested in watching it. But does it show that side of him? The
I haven't watched it. I haven't watched it. I haven't watched wrestling in 10 years. It's just not the same no more. Like driving up here with Tito was like we were talking about it in the car. My first experience. Well, we go to Vince sends me to Amarillo, Texas, right? So here, I mean, I'm in heaven. I'm a promoter. I am the promoter. I'm working for Mulligan and Murdoch, but I'm the promoter. And that was the agreement that I made with Mulligan and Murdoch before I came, that I'm going to put the cards together. They're going to overlook them, but I'm going to put the cards together, and they both agreed. So here I am, fly to Amarillo, Texas, New Jersey boy with my sport coat, my silk black shirt, my slacks, my pointed shoes, black shoes, and I get off the airport in Amarillo, and everybody has blue jeans and cowboy hats. And I'm standing out like a sore thumb. And I walk out the door, and I hear somebody go, "Hey, Savoldi, I'm over here." And it's Dick Murdoch with a dirty white shirt on, blue jeans, and he looks at me and he goes, "Jesus Christ, you think you're going to promote here? We're taking you to get clothes." He said, "You're sleeping at my house tonight. Tomorrow morning, we're going for clothes." And the next day, he took me for blue jeans, boots, and he tried to get me to wear a hat, but I wouldn't wear the hat. And he says, "Your office is in Canyon, Texas. And let me tell you something. If you want to see something with nobody there, just Perry, that's Canyon, Texas." And he says, "You'll get picked up to go to the town. You're going to get picked up by this guy, DiBiase. He's going to pick you up." My dad knew his father very well. So the next morning, this green Thunderbird pulls up, and in the car is Teddy, Tito, and Manny Fernandez. So I'm sitting behind Teddy, and I have no idea where we're going. I just know we're going to the town. But I'm thinking it's towns like when we did Portland, the longest trip was Portland to Bangor. When we did Boston, the longest trip was Boston to Portland. It was never crazy. So now I'm in the car, and I'm sitting in the back. I'm sitting behind Tito. Behind DiBiase. And we're driving, and it's nothing but tumbleweeds and wide open roads. I mean, there's no hills, there's no nothing. It's just flat. And if you're not paying attention, you're going to go off the road into the desert, right? And I'm sitting back there, and I'm hanging on to the thing next to me, and I look at the speedometer needle. It's like this. It's like if it's 110, that's where the needle is, at 110. Right. And I'm hanging on, man. I'm going, holy shit, what did I get myself into? Then they go, "You want to stop for something to eat?" We stop at the place you can get Tito's and burritos. I mean, that's all you could get, right? Yeah. I'm looking for a Taylor ham sandwich, and you can get a burrito. And the first stop was Colorado Springs. We drove from Amarillo, Texas to Colorado Springs. Then the next day we had to go from there to probably one of the most influential guys I ever met in my life as far as promotion, and that's Mike London. And we have an 11 o'clock TV slot because the show's at 1. And so we get to the thing, and I got the card, and I want to tell him I'm going to go over to TV with Mike London. And I walk in there, 11 o'clock in the morning, here's the guy holding a beer. We're live on TV. He's drinking a beer on TV. And he's going, well, tell the people about the show today. He's drinking away, and I'm more.
This is Mike London?
Mike London.
Okay.
I'm more looking at him than I mean, I lost all thoughts. I didn't even know, but the show was out of my mind at this point. And by the time we got there at 1 o'clock, he had to drink maybe 2 6-packs, maybe 3. By the time we got to the show, I mean, and it was a whole new experience for me, on the way they ran in Amarillo compared to the way Vince ran a very tight battleship, the father. It was very tight. And like I go to the box, oh, now there's 2 or 3 people selling tickets. What do you mean there's 2 or 3 people selling? Where are they selling them? Oh, I think the guy around the corner is selling some too. So I had to take all that and put it together and say, from now on, there's one ticket seller. It's this door. This is the way they get in and they get out, But it was an experience. I mean, he taught me a lot because I got to look at the different ways some of these territories were working. And I kind of put that together in Amarillo. And, of course, we hit some bumps. There was the actual local promoters there. What Murdoch and Mulligan didn't realize is that when they bought the territory from Funk, there was other people who had the rights to different territories. Like, they were partners in Amarillo. They didn't own Amarillo like they thought they did. They had a partner in Amarillo, Kozak's. Jerry Kozak was the partner in Amarillo, and that went through all the territories. But in Amarillo, I learned that the reason they can't keep the talent is that in 1 week, you went from TV at Amarillo at 10 o'clock in the morning at the studio. That was a Saturday. And you drove to Colorado Springs. From Colorado Springs, you drove over to Albuquerque, New Mexico. When you got done in Albuquerque, New Mexico, you couldn't hang around or get a night's sleep or anything. You drove to El Paso, which was like 400 or 500 miles away. And then from El Paso, you drove back to Amarillo. And that was a haul. So, I mean, I think I toured all Texas in 4 days. I mean, wow. And so what I tried to do when I got there was try to find towns in between so that these guys weren't, but then that was hard to keep the better older talent. They didn't want to be a part of it. Like when I took Bruno there, he said, look, I'll do Lubbock, Texas. That's it. That's as far as I'm going. So, I mean, fortunately, when I took Bruno there, I was able to get Bruno in Amarillo, of course, and then get him over to Lubbock, Texas. And then from Lubbock, I got him over to Von Erich. I got a hold of Fritz, and I got him to go to Von Erich. And Von Erich, he went over to, who's the other promoter in Texas?
Blanchard? Tully Blanchard?
No, Bosch, Paul Bosch. We got him over to Paul Bosch. And then from there he went back home, and we did the same thing with Andre. Because Andre, like they booked Andre in Colorado Springs, and I had a fight with Andre for like 2 hours that he wasn't going to go fly home, that he had to go back. He had to go back to Amarillo with me, and that was a whole different story. But on a whole, it was an experience, and that's how I learned. And I just say to the kids today, don't, take heed. Look at the towns, look at the people. You got to know the people in your town. You go to some of these matches and it's the same guys every week and they're doing the same thing. And after 2 or 3 times, what are they saying? They're saying nothing, and that's what you got to change. Talent is your key. If you can't change your talent, you're not going to be successful.
Who would have been your top 3 draws over the years?
Tony Atlas, Tito, the Bear.
Oh, the wrestling bear.
The wrestling bear. We sold out. Augusta Civic Center 3 times with the wrestling bear.
Wow.
Yeah.
As far as your separation from WWE and creating ICW, what led to that?
Well, actually, in the beginning, it was Bruno had a big deal with Vince, and they broke it off, and so from that, Bruno started his own organization, and he started it with Bruno, my dad, Dominic, those 3, and myself. We were the 4, and we started the wrestling, and we were only doors away from Vince, and we ran on the same day. And when we shot the angle between what the hell is his name? Between Zabisco and David Sammartino, and Bruno jumped in the ring, we sold out every place from that point on because they were all waiting for Bruno to come back.
Right.
And we were building it up to that, and then Bruno decided to go back to Vince, and that's when I took over the company completely. And that's where the mob part starts to come in, because we didn't have backing, and the people that were backing Bruno pulled out, and then they start pressuring us for the money. I had a friend, I called him, I said, look, these guys are big gamblers. Can you just talk to them, get them off my back? I'll pay them, but I got to do it. I can't do it all at once. So we had a meeting in Atlantic City, and to my benefit, they decided after meeting with Bucky, they didn't want any money. They just wanted out. And that's where the mob came into wrestling.
What were they like to deal with overall? Because they were involved with the Montreal territory too, right?
Yeah, well, Dino Bravo was involved with us.
Oh, okay.
Bucky was in charge of that mob that was in. He was part of that mob. This is the New Jersey group, New Jersey, Pennsylvania group. Okay. They were in control.
Right.
And to deal with them was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. And let me tell you why. I'd meet him on a Sunday. He would hand me an envelope for the money for the whole week, for everything. They paid for everything. When my guys came into the dressing room to wrestle, and you can ask Tito this or Tony, you got paid before you wrestled. Whatever your deal was, you got an envelope, your money was in there. So there was never a question for money. It wasn't if there was 10 people in the house or 10,000. You got paid before you walked into that ring.
And then you would pay them what the gross was at the end, or
no?
Percentage?
Most guys like Tito and Tony, they wanted an X amount of dollars, and when you want, say, $500,
yeah,
then you get $500. If the house only drew 30 people, you still got $500. But if the house drew 8,000 people, you still only got $500. But you got what you wanted prior to going in there.
And what did Bucky get out of helping you?
Well, what I found out later was Bucky paid for the hotels, he paid for the airfares, he paid for, guys would, you get a hold of Tony, he'll back this up, guys would he'd take you all out to dinner. The guys after the show, you didn't pay for nothing. But they were using bogus credit cards, which I didn't know. And they were that bogus, but at the end of the week, we would sit down and tally the week up, and he would say, okay, here's my bills with paying the hotels, the dinners, and everything. You owe me $5,000 off the top, so we take $5,000 off the top, and then we split the balance. So let's say we made, after giving him $5,000, there was $5,000 or $10,000 left. So he would get $5, I would get $5. But he got $10, and he didn't pay for that other $5. I didn't know that till much, much later.
And I guess you were involved with both Puerto Rican companies at one point in time?
We took ownership. We took 51% ownership of IWA.
Was that after Victor Quiones died?
That Victor and I were very close friends, very, very close friends. And I had went to Puerto Rico several times because Victor asked me to come. We were looking to get involved before Victor died. When Victor passed away, we kind of dumped the deal, and then I got a call from Miguel Perez's mother saying that they would like to talk. Michael would like to talk, and we talked to Michael, and they needed help because they were going broke. So I went there with my investors, and we bought 51% of Puerto Rico. But that was a nightmare. That was a nightmare. That was, I mean, as far as promoting, we did phenomenal. It was a phenomenal place to get crowds. It was just great. But as far as being honest with each other, it was horrible.
Could Puerto Rico come back, or is it just too financially devastated there now?
You know, I believe any place can come back, but like I love Carlos Colon. I mean, he's been a family friend forever. And even when I went there against him, I told him I would never do anything to hurt him in any way. We stood away from him as much as possible. The only towns we really ran together was San Juan. Right. Besides that, he ran some towns and we ran the others. But do I think it could come back? Of course it could come back, but I think for it to come back would take a hell of a lot of money and a hell of a lot of time. But yeah, it could come back.
Around that time, I was wrestling a little bit for Carlos, and I remember on one weekend you were there filming shows. Did anything ever come of that? Or
yeah, we did a lot of stuff together, Carlos and I. Even with the IWA, we did a lot of stuff. I tried to get the two groups together because I felt that if there could be one big group, it could be unbelievable for both. But Carlos's partner was totally against it. I mean, Carlos was going for it. I mean, I got Carlos as far as sitting down with Miguel and me and getting it all together. But Carlos's partner nixed it, and then from there, I think they went even further down.
So you have all this footage from all your years of promoting. What's going on now with your current project related to this footage?
Well, if I can call the guy in who handles all that, he could give you a total on
Sure.
that, because Dan is my right-hand man and he takes care of that.
So we have a streaming network available on most platforms. It's called Ultimate Classic Wrestling. You can watch that on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, iOS, Android, or online at classicwrestling.net. We have about 5,000 hours of Savoldi footage, and we've acquired for distribution probably about another 2,000 hours. So we got a lot of classic wrestling from all over the world.
And you're selling DVDs today. Can people still buy DVDs off of your website or anything if they?
We've been co-producing DVDs with Joe Dombrowski from Major League Wrestling. You can buy physical DVDs from ProWrestlingLibrary.com.
So is there any further plans as far as getting more footage of current wrestling and doing events here and there, or is it basically just going to be the classic footage that you guys are going to be